Hello 8th graders, welcome to IXL support video for F7, the one called Evaluate Negative Exponents. And for this one, as you see from the name, we're actually going to have to do the math with some negative exponents. Now we think you're good with knowing or understanding what a negative exponent means from F6, but just as a key refresher, it's important to know what a negative exponent means to evaluate them. And you should recall from F6 that negative exponents are a way for us to show repeated division of the same base term. Or in other words, x to the power of negative a really means just take a 1 and divide by a copies of x. So let's see that in action a little bit. Here they tell us to evaluate, and the details also tell us we could write our answer as fractions or whole numbers, but we can't keep exponents in our answer. So the first thing I'm going to do is convert this negative exponent to a positive exponent, because that works better for my brain for sure. I know do this a little bit. I know that 1 over 3, or 1 over 3 to the first power, is the same thing as 3 to the negative first power. That's the important thing to note here first. And 3 to the first isn't that tough, that just says 1 copy of 3. So I know 3 to the negative first really is the same thing as the fraction 1 over 3. That fraction cannot be simplified any further, it can't be written as a whole number, so I'm going to leave it as a fraction and submit. For the next one, we have 4 to the power of negative 1, or 4 to the negative first power. And again, I can rewrite that as 1 over 4 to the first power. This says divide by the 4 one time. And so that really just means the fraction 1 divided by 4, or 1/4. Now we have 4 to the negative third this time. So 4 to the negative third. Pretty similar 4 to the negative first. It says you're going to divide by that base 4. So I'm going to use a fraction. Divide by that base 4 3 times. And it's just going to be a 1 on the top if there was nothing else there, because we could say 1 times 4 to the negative third. Now we need to know what 4 to the third is. They say you cannot write your number with exponents. It needs to be without them. So 4 to the third, if you do that math out, 4 times 4 times 4. Hopefully we're getting a little more familiar that 4 to the third makes 64. When I do 16 times 4 at the end. And that's what F7 is all about. You're just going to keep converting these negative exponents to a positive exponent and then doing out that math there. 1 over 3 cubed is going to just be 1 over 27. We're going to show one more that we want you doing on your own at home before watching us. And IXL was a little nice to you, so they're saying, what would 2 to the negative first be? So pause this video, try to think about that on your own. What would 2 to the negative first be? And now I'll show you, I would view this step by step. First, I'd kind of see this as 1 divided by 1 copy of 2. That's what negative first power means for 2. And that's just going to be the same thing as 1 over 2 if all we have is 1 copy. Now, I'm going to skip ahead. I think you all are in very good shape and you can be stopping this video and working through F7 on your own. I'm going to go ahead and skip forward to some of the more challenging problems in case students are running into difficult ones there. So we'll show one from here. I think you all could do this at home. Pause the video, think about what does 6 to the negative second or 6 to the negative second power make. And then as you're coming back, hopefully you have an answer already. I would convert this to 1 divided by 6 squared. That's what 6 to the negative second really means. And then I know 6 squared is just going to be 36. So our answer is going to be 1 over 36. We're going to keep skipping ahead here, jumping towards the challenge zone or whatever's most difficult, but we think that you are ready to go. We think you're all set. Now, when you get up into the 70s, it looks like they may change the base to be a fraction or a decimal, something more difficult. So we're going to think about this for a second. This is definitely a tougher question. I like that they showed this. This is 1 over 6 to the negative second power, which can get a little confusing because it says to divide a bunch of times. But remember, division and multiplication are opposites. And I should have shown something else in class. If you have a fraction as a base raised to a negative exponent, that means divide. So it's weird. You're going to be dividing by the top, and if you divide the division on the bottom, that's going to become multiplication. So here's what happens. Anytime you have a fractional base and a negative exponent, just flip the fraction, the base, from 1 over 6 to 6 over 1. And now because I flipped this, I took the reciprocal. Negative exponents really mean reciprocal. It's the reciprocal of the multiplications, the division. So because of that, I know a nice property that I should have taught all of us in 8th grade math when we had a whole class on F7, and that is 1 over 6 to the negative second can really be 6 over 1 to the positive second. And that's just going to give me 36. We need to teach that better in class, and we will get into that, I'm sure. And this comes up all the time, so we actually probably needed to get a whole property or rule for this. Now we see the next one. I'll delete this. It says 1 over 8 to the negative second. And remember, a negative exponent is the reverse or the inverse of the positive exponents. So if I take the reciprocal of the fraction, if I flip that from 1 over 8 to 8 over 1, then the exponent simply transforms from a negative exponent to a positive exponent. That's kind of the beauty of math. There's some symmetries that kind of work well together. And one of them is if division and multiplication are inverses, and negative and positive exponents are inverses, you can flip the fraction to change the negative to a positive.